What if I told you that for some of Earth's weirdest creatures, the whole idea of bleeding red is just wrong? Try to picture a world where blood isn't red but a bright, almost alien-looking blue. It sounds like something from a sci-fi movie. But for a handful of animals, it's their reality. And it's a reality shaped by the brutal and beautiful logic of evolution. We're about to explore the wild science that makes this possible, and how it helps these animals thrive in some of the most extreme places on Earth. We'll look deep into the oceans and at the very molecules of life to see why, for some, blue is the new red. Every single person watching this knows what color blood is. It feels like a basic, undeniable fact of life. From a scraped knee when you were a kid to a paper cut at your desk, we've all seen that familiar crimson color. It's the color of life, right? But what if I told you that everything you thought you knew about blood was just one side of the story? What if out there in the animal kingdom, there's a totally different blueprint for life's most vital fluid? This isn't a what-if question, it's a biological fact. There are ancient, mysterious creatures out there whose veins pump with a liquid that is shockingly, brilliantly blue. The fact that blue blood even exists shatters a truth we all take for granted. And the reason why it exists is even cooler than the color itself. Before we get into the blue stuff, let's start with what we know: red blood. Why is our blood and the blood of pretty much all vertebrates red? The answer comes down to one hugely important protein: hemoglobin. Think of hemoglobin as the body's personal oxygen delivery service. These microscopic molecules are packed inside our red blood cells, and they're always on a mission to grab oxygen from our lungs and haul it to every single cell, from your brain to your big toe. But the real star of the show, the part that gives blood its famous color, is iron. At the center of every hemoglobin molecule is a structure called a heme group, and right in the middle of that is an iron atom. This iron atom is what does all the work. When you breathe in, the iron grabs onto oxygen molecules. This simple act changes how the molecule absorbs and reflects light. When iron and oxygen are bound together, the molecule absorbs blue-green light, which means the light that bounces back to our eyes is bright, vibrant red. When it drops off the oxygen to our tissues, the color dulls to a darker maroon, but it's still fundamentally red. This iron-based system is also incredibly efficient. Hemoglobin is great at something called cooperative binding. Picture a delivery truck with 4 empty slots. As soon as the first package, the first oxygen molecule, is loaded on, it somehow makes it way easier and faster for the next 3 to jump on board. This little trick lets our blood get saturated with oxygen super quickly as it passes through the lungs, guaranteeing a steady supply to fuel our warm-blooded, high-energy lives. For us and most animals with a backbone, iron is the key, painting our insides red. It's a system that works like a charm for creatures living on land, in stable temperatures with plenty of oxygen. But what happens when the environment gets turned on its head? What about life in the crushing cold and oxygen-starved depths of the ocean? For that, evolution needed a different plan. Okay, let's leave the familiar red behind and check out the alien world of blue blood. And this isn't some rare mutation affecting 1 or 2 species. Blue blood is the life force for a huge group of animals, mostly invertebrates. We're talking about some of the smartest, oldest, and most bizarre creatures on the planet, octopuses, squids, and cuttlefish, with their crazy complex nervous systems and camouflage skills. It's also the case for tons of crustaceans like lobsters, crabs, and shrimp, the armored knights of the seafloor. And of course, there's the horseshoe crab, a living fossil that's been walking along our coastlines for over 400 million years, way before the dinosaurs. Even some land dwellers like certain spiders and scorpions have it. So what links all these different animals? They all use a different kind of molecule to move oxygen around. Instead of iron-based hemoglobin, their blood, or technically their hemolymph, is built around a protein called hemocyanin. And if hemoglobin's key ingredient is iron, hemocyanin's is copper. That one atomic swap is the entire reason for the color change. In hemocyanin, two copper atoms team up to bind to one oxygen molecule. Now, here's where the magic happens. When hemocyanin is deoxygenated, not carrying any oxygen, it's actually colorless. So the blood of an octopus that's just dropped off its oxygen is basically clear. But when it flows through the gills and picks up oxygen, the copper atoms change. This alters the protein's structure and how it plays with light. Suddenly, the oxygenated hemocyanin molecule gets really good at absorbing red light. And when you take red light out of the equation, what's left to bounce back to our eyes is its opposite, a brilliant, vivid blue. Unlike hemoglobin, which is tucked away inside red blood cells, hemocyanin molecules are massive by comparison and just float freely in the hemolymph. The shift from colorless to blue is a breathtakingly simple chemical trick that paints the insides of these animals an ethereal blue. It's a completely parallel system for life that solved the exact same problem, how to move oxygen around, with a totally different and way more stunning solution. The fact that blue blood exists brings up a huge question. Why? Why did evolution go with a copper-based system for these animals when the iron-based one works so well for everyone else? The answer has nothing to do with looks. It's all about survival in tough places. Hemocyanin isn't just a different color, it's a specialized tool, perfectly built for life in the cold and dark where oxygen is hard to come by. The main advantage of hemocyanin is that it works great in cold, low oxygen water, which describes a lot of the world's oceans. Hemoglobin might be great in our warm bodies, but it starts to struggle when the temperature drops. It gets worse at grabbing and letting go of oxygen. Hemocyanin, on the other hand, is a star in these conditions. It's much better at moving oxygen around in near-freezing water, making sure that animals like an octopus or a deep-sea crab can keep their energy up where red-blooded animals would fail. For example, the Antarctic octopus has blood that can be packed with over 40% more hemocyanin than its cousins in warmer waters, a supercharged adaptation to get enough oxygen from the frigid Southern Ocean. Here's an analogy. Imagine you have two types of delivery trucks. The hemoglobin truck is a high-performance race car. It's super fast and efficient on a warm, smooth highway, but its performance tanks on a bumpy, icy road. The hemocyanin truck is a rugged, all-terrain vehicle. It's not as fast on the highway, but on a treacherous, icy mountain pass, it's the only one that can reliably get the job done. On top of that, the structure of hemocyanin helps too. Because these big molecules float freely, They also help regulate the blood salt content, which is a huge deal for marine animals that need to stay balanced with the seawater around them. Hemocyanin is also less bothered by changes in pH or acidity, but this specialization comes with a few catches. Molecule for molecule, hemocyanin just isn't as good at carrying oxygen as hemoglobin is. Most versions are about 1/4 as efficient, and they don't get that cooperative binding boost that makes hemoglobin so great. This is why you don't see any large, fast, warm-blooded land animals with blue blood. The copper-based system just couldn't deliver oxygen quickly enough to support that kind of high-speed metabolism. But for a spider waiting in its burrow, or a lobster crawling across the cold, dark ocean floor, it's the perfect system. It just goes to show that evolution is a genius at finding the right tool for the job, even if that tool paints the river of life a startling shade of blue. The science is cool, but the animals themselves are even cooler. Let's look at a couple of these blue-blooded champions. First up is the octopus. These guys are the Einsteins of the invertebrate world, known for solving puzzles and having complex personalities. But their insides are just as strange and fascinating. An octopus doesn't have one heart. It has three. Two of these hearts, the branchial hearts, do nothing but pump blood through the gills to get oxygenated. The third, bigger systemic heart then circulates that fresh, blue blood to the rest of the body. They need this powerful multi-heart setup because their blue blood isn't as oxygen-rich, so they have to pump it harder to keep their big brains and active muscles going. But here's a weird quirk. When an octopus swims, its main systemic heart just stops beating. This makes swimming incredibly tiring for them, which is why they usually prefer to walk or crawl along the seafloor, a behavior that's a direct result of their blue blood. Next up, the undisputed icon of blue blood, the horseshoe crab. These creatures are actual living fossils, having been around for 450 million years. Their survival is partly thanks to their incredible immune system, which is directly tied to their blue blood. Instead of white blood cells, they have cells called amoebocytes. These cells are amazingly sensitive to the toxins produced by certain bacteria. The second they detect even a tiny trace of these invaders, they release a chemical that causes the blood to clot around the bacteria almost instantly, walling it off and neutralizing the threat. This amazing ability has made horseshoe crab blood priceless for human medicine. For decades, a substance taken from their blood called lineolus amoebocyte lysate, or LAL, has been the global standard for making sure vaccines, IV drugs, and medical tools are free from bacterial contamination. Every year, hundreds of thousands of horseshoe crabs are carefully gathered, have some of their blue blood drawn, and are then released back into the ocean. While this process has saved millions of human lives, it has put a lot of pressure on horseshoe crab populations, which has led to a major push for synthetic alternatives to protect this ancient blue-blooded wonder. While the red-to-blue switch is the most famous example of different blood chemistry, nature's palette doesn't end there. The animal kingdom has actually evolved a surprising spectrum of blood colors. If you look at certain marine worms like bristleworms, you might find creatures with green blood. Their blood has a pigment called chlorocruorin. It's very similar to our hemoglobin and also uses iron to bind oxygen. A tiny structural differences cause it to look green when it's low on oxygen. It's a great example of how a tiny chemical tweak can create a totally different color. Then you've got the even rarer purple blood, found in a small group of animals like peanut worms and brachiopods. Their lifeblood is colored by a protein called hemerythrin. It also uses iron, but the iron is attached differently than in our blood. This structural change means that when it's deoxygenated, the blood is totally colorless. But once it grabs oxygen, it transforms, turning a striking violet-pink color. Some animals even have yellow blood. Sea cucumbers have blood with a yellow tint from a high concentration of a vanadium-based pigment. But here's the truly strange part. This pigment, called vanabin, doesn't seem to transport oxygen at all. They still use hemocyanin for that. Scientists guess the vanadium might be for something else entirely, maybe to make them taste bad or toxic to predators. And finally, what about no color at all? The crocodile ice fish, living in the freezing waters of Antarctica, is the only known vertebrate to have completely clear blood. It has no hemoglobin and no red blood cells. So how does it survive? The extreme cold of its home means the water holds way more dissolved oxygen than warmer water does. The ice fish just absorbs this oxygen directly from the water into its blood plasma through its massive gills and even its skin. It's just enough to fuel its slow metabolism without needing any special oxygen-carrying proteins. This incredible variety from green to purple to clear is a powerful reminder that there is no single right way for life to work. Evolution is always experimenting, finding new chemical solutions to create an amazing array of creatures, each one perfectly suited to its own corner of the world. The fact that something as basic as blood can come in so many different colors is just a perfect example of how wild and diverse the natural world is. If you thought this look into the science of weird blood was fascinating, and you want to keep exploring the incredible secrets of biology, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We have so many more scientific mysteries to unravel together. And now I have a question for you. Learning about all these different blood types, if you could choose, would you stick with classic red blood, or would you go for copper-based blue, or maybe one of the other exotic colors? Let me know your choice and why down in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to see what you all think. So we're back where we started, but now we know that blood is not just red. For some of the most alien-like animals on our own planet, it's a brilliant blue. And this isn't a flaw or a second-rate design, it's a masterpiece of evolution. The copper-based molecule hemocyanin shows how life can find incredible solutions for the most challenging problems. It's what allows an octopus to thrive in the cold, crushing darkness of the deep sea, and lets a horseshoe crab carry the secrets of a 450-million-year-old history in its veins. The color of an animal's blood tells a story. It's a story written in molecules about where it lives, the challenges it faces, and the unique path it took to survive. From the iron in our veins that ties us to the land, to the copper that gives cephalopods their otherworldly edge, the river of life flows in a spectacular and surprising rainbow of colors. It reminds us that our own human experience is just one version of what it means to be alive on this strange and wonderful planet. Every creature has its own secrets, its own biology, and its own color of life. And the more we explore them, the more we understand just how big and beautiful the world around us really is.